Thank you. Next, we're going to have Darin Goens from the National Rifle Association. Not surprisingly, opposed.
Madam Chairman, thank you, members of the committee. My name is Darin Goens. I'm the State Director of Legislative Affairs for the National Rifle Association. Not surprisingly opposed. Well, I appreciate the comment. I guess I'll preface my statement by saying we all have an interest in safe communities. There's nobody that wants people who are struggling with mental health issues or anger issues or violent behavior to have firearms. There's nobody in this room that supports that. But what we are concerned about is that everybody has due process, that someone who is accused or maybe falsely accused has process, and especially if their firearms are removed, even if it's temporarily, that there's a process for getting those rights restored. And I think that this bill addresses two interesting issues. It addresses both mental health and reporting. And if you take the last tragic incident that happened in Parkland, those issues were certainly at the forefront, especially when you consider that law enforcement was called 30 or 40 times about this guy. So I think that there are some deficiencies in our system right now, but those deficiencies aren't addressed by this bill. I'm really actually more troubled by the bill's focus on firearms, because if you are a threat, shouldn't we be focused on removing the person from the situation, meaning if they're exhibiting violent behavior, they would be detained by law enforcement, or if they were struggling from mental issues, that they would be involuntarily committed. In other words, removing the person from the dangerous situation if that's warranted, and there's a process for that, as opposed to doing things like taking their firearms, FID cards, carry permits, etc., because this focuses solely on firearms. And these people who maybe are suicidal, what about pills? What about ropes, knives, other weapons that they may use? I mean, it doesn't address any of that. The other problem that we have is how is this stuff returned? And Scott Bach, I think, dealt with this when he said that we may be looking at the references to the improper forfeiture statute. So I think that that's something to take a look at too. I'm not going to go on very long because I think a lot of the comments have already been made, and I think that I've expressed what our concerns are with this legislation. I just have a little bit of hesitancy delegating some of these powers to marriage counselors and social workers and people that I think maybe aren't as well trained as others in threat assessment. So I think that there are some issues on this bill that should be looked at, and for that reason we oppose this because I don't think it gets to the root of the problem. It's focused on firearms, and it really should be focused on mental health and the reporting and making sure that law enforcement follow up on leads, and there are things that we can do that make sense, and I don't think that this bill gets there. And with that, I would avail myself to any questions if there are any.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.